There was this man in his 30s, and apparently he was a vivid collector of rare movies, such as both old and new. He was especially fond of Disney films. However, his name was Max. Was born in the 1990s, like early 1990s, probably 1992 or in 1993. He really enjoyed a lot of Disney films. The Renaissance was one of the best ones, such as The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, etc. However, though, one of his most favorite films from the 1990s was The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was a Disney movie that came out in 1996. Pretty good film that came out in the 90s. When he was a kid, he did see it in theaters when he was a kid when it first came out. He was only about 3 years old. However, it does have a lot of great actors, and it was quite interesting. Now, with most fairy tales, they usually have a dark story right behind, the so-called movies that were from Disney. Disney has made, films that were dark even for kids, but they did it in a kid-friendly way. One of the most disturbing parts was, well, the death of Frollo, who he had fell off of the of the tower in that scene. Yeah, you can understand what that meant. While the film was a pretty great great movie, I personally have to say it was definitely one of those movies I've really seen in my honest eyes. However, though, with that out of the way, Max had discovered a really dark version of this, and honestly, it was honestly something he wished that he never saw. So, it comes to the thrift shops. Max had knew he had to buy some movies that he didn't have. Eventually, he came across the 1996 The Hunchback of Notre Dame on DVD. Of course, it was the Disney film, to which he was so excited because this was going to be the first time he's ever played a movie on his DVD player for a long time. After he bought the movie, he went back home and he put the DVD in his player. It didn't play the classic friendly version, which was familiar with. Instead, he was met with a disturbed, gory version of the movie. Details in the movie were more graphic than the original, hinting a much darker version of the characters' lives and motivations. You know that scene where, well, Esmeralda was about to be, executed, aka, being, set on fire for, well, witchcraft? It honestly happened, and we see Esmeralda burning to death. Honestly, the next thing was, the bell towers of Notre Dame. That scene plays out with Frollo dying, but however, Quasimodo, he hung himself in the bell tower. Honestly, he couldn't handle the guilt. He couldn't handle all the shit that's been going on. He honestly had no idea what to do. Honestly, this wasn't how Disney would animate, since Disney would never take on these topics such as characters taking their own lives and that. That was not Disney. Max honestly knew that this was not a real Disney film, as Disney would never make any film like this or ever release it to the public. Honestly, this was something that Max had never even saw. Of course, as soon as the movie ended, he honestly took the DVD out of the player. He honestly was so disturbed, he wasn't sure what to process. Most of the film was alright until more disturbing, twisted versions of the movie came up. Honestly, this prompted him to get a little disturbed and weirded out, unsure of what he should do next. He had considers on, trying to maybe see if he can go to the cops, but at the same time, he doesn't even know if they would even believe in him. Within some pacing, he eventually decided that he would turn it into the cops the next day. He put the disc back in the DVD player, and he left it and went to go watch something on YouTube. Of course, he went to the police the next day to report this film and even took the DVD case for evidence. However, when he told them about what stuff was in the movie, at first the police seemed to brush him off. However, though, the thing was, though, is that the cops had watched the movie because they were thinking maybe there was something deemed about it. The original Hunchback of Notre Dame story, not the Disney one, but the novel, was a lot more darker, and it didn't have a happy ending like the original film. The fact that the movie was more disturbing than that, than the original Disney one, had made them feel suspicious about it. So after viewing it, the case seemed to be going on for a few months, and then it mysteriously disappeared without any explanation. The police were searching for the person who could be responsible for behind the dark version of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but unfortunately they turned up with nothing, which was honestly confusing. The police had never caught the person responsible for the movie, so Max was left to wonder why so many lost movies that seemed to remain unsolved. What could have caused the question to happen to the dark version of Hunchback of Notre Dame that Max had watched? He was unsure to this day of who would be behind it all. Honestly, he just doesn't even know, and it still is going to still bother him. Every now and then, he would think about this film from time to time, and he wondered, why did somebody create this film? Honestly, he tried to see if anyone has uploaded clips of the disturbed version on YouTube, but it turns out with nothing. There was nothing on the internet. Not even the dark web had provided any information. Honestly, Max had dropped the whole subject and moved on. He has no idea if the original Hunchback of Notre Dame was still out there or not. He liked to think that maybe the person who created it is still out there, or if he's been caught. It has been 2 years since that incident, and Max still has not looked at the Hunchback of Notre Dame movie ever since that day, like the same way. He still wonders today what could be possible, or who would have drove someone into that insane to make this weird movie. Honestly, those questions still wander in his mind to this day, but he would like to think that maybe somebody was sick enough to actually see it. That he may never know. But still to this day, it still lingers to this day in his mind. But he does hope that maybe someday, someone might be able to solve this mystery for him. Until then, he's just gonna have to wait and see.